Part 1. The sky above Earth was no longer the same. For years, people had looked up at night and seen stars scattered across the blackness, like tiny diamonds. They dreamed of reaching those distant lights, of exploring planets far beyond their own world. But one day, everything changed. Without warning, the stars disappeared. It wasn't just that the stars vanished from view. Something much stranger and more terrifying happened. A massive object appeared in orbit around Earth. It was enormous, so big that it stretched across the entire planet's horizon if you tried to look at it from below. Scientists called it the Veil. No one knew what it was or where it came from. All they knew was this: whatever the veil was, it blocked everything. It stopped sunlight from reaching certain parts of the globe. It silenced radio waves, making communication with satellites impossible. And worst of all, it cut Earth off from space completely. At first, governments around the world scrambled to figure out what was going on. Space agencies launched probes toward the veil, hoping to gather data, or even make contact with whoever or whatever had put it there. But every single probe sent into the veil simply vanished. Not a single signal returned. The veil didn't destroy them. It swallowed them whole, as though they had never existed. People were scared. Some thought the veil was a sign of the apocalypse. Religious leaders preached about the end times, while conspiracy theorists claimed aliens were preparing to invade. Others believed it was humanity's punishment for ruining the planet. Whatever the reason, life on Earth began to feel smaller, darker, and lonelier. The idea of leaving Earth to explore other worlds, a dream once so close to becoming reality now, seemed laughable. Among the many scientists working tirelessly to understand the veil was Daniel Carter. He was an astrophysicist who had spent most of his career studying the mysteries of the universe. Tall and thin, with glasses that always slid down his nose, Daniel wasn't the kind of person who stood out in a crowd. But when it came to solving problems, he was relentless. His colleague, Laura Bennett, often joked that Daniel could stare at equations for days without eating or sleeping until he found the answer. Laura was different from Daniel in almost every way. While he preferred quiet labs and endless calculations, she thrived on action and adventure. With her short brown hair and sharp green eyes, she carried herself with confidence. She was also one of the few engineers brave enough to design machines meant to interact directly with the veil. Together, Daniel and Laura formed a team that balanced logic and creativity perfectly. For months, they worked side by side, running tests and analyzing data. Every day brought new frustrations. Nothing they did seemed to affect the veil. It was as if the object didn't exist in the same reality as Earth. Probes couldn't touch it. Lasers bounced off harmlessly. Even attempts to send messages through the veil failed. It was maddening. One evening, after another long day of fruitless experiments, Daniel sat slumped in his chair, staring blankly at a computer screen filled with numbers and graphs. Laura leaned against the wall nearby, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. "We're missing something," Daniel muttered, rubbing his temples. "There has to be a pattern here. Something we haven't noticed yet." Laura sighed. "Maybe there isn't a pattern. Maybe the veil is just random or smarter than we are." Daniel frowned. "Smarter? You think it's alive?" "I don't know," Laura admitted, "but it reacts to things. Remember when we sent that last probe? The veil shifted slightly before it disappeared. That wasn't random," it responded. Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right. But how do we communicate with it? How do we even begin to understand something so alien?" Before Laura could respond, the door to their lab burst open. A man hurried inside, breathing heavily. It was Jack Monroe, a private investigator hired by a wealthy client to dig into classified government files. Jack wasn't a scientist, but he had stumbled upon information that made him believe Daniel and Laura might need to hear. "You two need to see this," Jack said, holding up a folder stuffed with papers. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What is it? Classified documents, Jack replied. About Project Warbringer? Laura frowned. Project Warbringer? Never heard of it? That's because it was shut down decades ago, Jack explained. Supposedly, it was a military experiment to create super soldiers. But there's more to it than that. One of the subjects, the main subject, didn't die. He disappeared. Daniel exchanged a glance with Laura. And you think this has something to do with the veil? Jack shrugged. I don't know. But I do know that Subject Alpha, the guy who disappeared, was fused with some kind of advanced AI. If anyone can help us understand the veil, maybe it's him. Laura crossed her arms. Even if he's still alive, which is a big if, how are we supposed to find him? That's the tricky part, Jack admitted. According to these files, he's trapped in some kind of dimensional rift. But if we can get to him... Daniel leaned forward, intrigued. If we can get to him, we might have a chance. The three of them spent hours poring over the documents, piecing together clues about Subject Alpha and the rift. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking outside the lab windows. None of them had slept, but none of them cared. They had a light, a faint glimmer of hope in a situation that felt utterly hopeless. As the sun rose over the city, casting golden light through the lab's dusty windows, Daniel turned to Laura and Jack. This changes everything, he said quietly. If we can find Subject Alpha, we might finally have a way to fight back. Laura nodded. Let's get to work. Jack grinned. About time someone did something crazy. And with that, the three of them set off on a journey that would take them far beyond anything they had ever imagined. Little did they know, their actions would change the fate of humanity forever. Part 2. The revelation about Project Warbringer weighed heavily on Daniel, Laura, and Jack. They had spent days going over the classified documents, piecing together fragments of information that painted a picture both fascinating and terrifying. Subject Alpha Ethan Drake was no ordinary soldier. He wasn't even entirely human anymore. The project's goal had been to merge advanced artificial intelligence with the human mind, creating a being capable of unmatched strength, speed, and intelligence. But something went wrong during the final experiment. According to the files, Ethan Drake had been subjected to an experimental procedure that fused his consciousness with an AI core designed for combat. The process was supposed to enhance his abilities while keeping him in control. Instead, it tore apart his physical body and trapped his mind in a state between dimensions. His body became encased in crystalline armor, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. Then, just as the scientists were about to shut down the experiment, he vanished, pulled into the very dimensional rift they had created. For years, rumors circulated among military insiders that Ethan Drake hadn't died. Some claimed he still existed somewhere, floating endlessly in the void, aware but unable to escape. Others dismissed these stories as wild speculation. But now, thanks to Jack's discovery, Daniel and Laura believed there might be truth to them. We need to find him, Daniel said one evening, pacing back and forth in their makeshift headquarters, a cramped office filled with papers, laptops, and half-empty coffee cups. If what these documents say is true, Ethan Drake is our best chance at understanding the veil. Laura nodded, though her expression was skeptical. Even if we can locate him, how do we bring him back? And what happens if we succeed? What if he's unstable? Jack leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Unstable or not, he's the only lead we've got. Besides, if he's been stuck in that rift for decades, he might be willing to help us, if it means getting out. Daniel stopped pacing and turned to face them. It's risky, I know. But we don't have any other options. If we don't try this, we're just sitting ducks waiting for the veil to crush us. Laura sighed, running a hand through her short brown hair. Fine. Let's say we go ahead with this. How do we even begin finding a dimensional rift? It's not like we can just fire up a spaceship and start searching. That's where I come in, Jack said. pulling out a map printed on yellowed paper. These files mention coordinates locations where the rifts are most likely to appear. They're scattered across remote areas of the planet, places where energy readings spike unpredictably. If we set up sensors in those spots, we might be able to detect a breach. Daniel studied the map carefully. This could work. We'll need equipment, lots of it. High-powered scanners, quantum detectors, anything we can get our hands on. And funding, Laura added dryly. This isn't exactly cheap. Jack smirked. Leave that to me. My client's loaded. As long as we keep him in the loop, he'll cover whatever we need. Over the next few weeks, the trio worked tirelessly to prepare for their mission. They assembled a team of trusted engineers and technicians to build the necessary equipment. They scoured old military bases for spare parts and scavenged abandoned labs for tools. Every day brought new challenges, but also new progress. Slowly but surely, they began constructing a device capable of detecting and potentially entering a dimensional rift. As the pieces came together, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with forces far beyond their understanding. The veil had already proven itself to be incomprehensible, and now they were chasing after something equally mysterious. Still, he reminded himself why they were doing this. Humanity was trapped, cut off from the stars, and unless someone took action, Earth would remain in prison forever. One afternoon, while testing one of the prototype scanners, Laura called Daniel over urgently. Her voice was tense, tinged with excitement. "Take a look at this," she said, pointing to a screen displaying a series of erratic energy spikes. "I think we found something." Daniel examined the data closely. The readings matched the patterns described in the Project Warbringer files, and stable fluctuations in space-time, concentrated in a specific location deep in the Arctic wilderness. It was exactly what they had been looking for. "This could be it," Daniel said, his heart pounding. "The rift," Jack grinned. "Time to pack our bags. Looks like we're going on a little trip." The journey to the Arctic was grueling. The team traveled by plane, snowmobile, and finally on foot, braving freezing temperatures and treacherous terrain. By the time they reached the designated coordinates, exhaustion was etched into everyone's faces. But none of them complained. They were too focused on the task ahead. Setting up camp near the site, they deployed their equipment and began scanning the area. For hours, nothing happened. The machines hummed quietly, recording normal background radiation levels. Doubt started creeping in. Had they made a mistake? Was the rift even real? Then, late at night, everything changed. A sudden surge of energy rippled through the air, causing the scanners to beep wildly. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and a strange glow appeared on the horizon. It was faint at first, like moonlight reflected off ice, but it quickly grew brighter, pulsating with an otherworldly light. Laura grabbed her tablet, frantically analyzing the readings. "It's opening," she shouted. "The rift, right here." Daniel stared in awe as the glow expanded, forming a swirling vortex of colors that defied description. Blues, greens, and purples danced together, twisting and shifting like liquid fire. The air crackled with electricity, and a low, resonant hum filled their ears. Jack shielded his eyes with one hand. "Is it safe to go in?" "No idea," Laura admitted. "But if we want answers, we don't have a choice." Without hesitation, Daniel stepped forward. "Let's move." Equipped with protective suits and portable scanners, the team approached the rift cautiously. Each step felt surreal, as though they were walking into a dream or a nightmare. The closer they got, the stronger the pull became, tugging at their bodies like an invisible current dot. When they reached the edge of the vortex, Daniel paused, turning to the others. "Once we cross, there's no turning back. Are you sure about this?" Laura nodded firmly. "We didn't come all this way to quit now." Jack gave a lopsided smile. "Besides, dying in some crazy sci-fi adventure sounds better than rotting away under that damn veil." With that, They stepped into the rift. What followed was unlike anything they had ever experienced. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. Colors blurred together, forming shapes that shifted too quickly to comprehend. Sounds echoed around them, voices speaking in languages they didn't recognize, whispers that sent chills down their spines. It was disorienting, overwhelming, and utterly alien. After what felt like an eternity but could have been mere seconds, they emerged on the other side. The landscape before them was desolate and hauntingly beautiful. Towering ruins stretched endlessly across the horizon, their jagged forms silhouetted against a sky that glowed faintly red. Strange symbols were carved into the stone, glowing softly with an inner light. Energy signatures pulsed faintly in the distance, drawing their attention. And then they saw him. Floating silently amidst the wreckage was Ethan Drake, encased in crystalline armor. His body radiated a faint blue light. His eyes were closed, his face expressionless, as though he were in a deep sleep. Yet there was something unmistakably alive about him, a presence that filled the air with tension. "He's real," Daniel whispered, his voice trembling with awe. Laura adjusted her scanner, studying the readings. "His energy signature matches the AI core described in the files. This is him." Jack took a cautious step forward. "Hey, Sleeping Beauty, wake up." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Ethan's eyes opened. They glowed brighter than before, piercing through the dim light like twin stars. His gaze swept over the group, silent and calculating. "What do you want?" he asked finally, his voice echoing not just in their ears, but in their minds. Daniel swallowed hard, stepping forward. "We need your help. Earth is trapped. There's something blocking us from the stars, a thing called the Veil. We think you can help us understand it." Ethan remained silent for a long moment, processing their words. Finally, he spoke again. "Why should I care?" Laura stepped forward, her tone urgent. "Because if you don't help us, humanity will die. Trapped, alone, and forgotten. You're our only hope." Ethan regarded them coolly. "Very well. But on one condition. When this is over, you free me from this place." Daniel nodded. "Deal." With that, Ethan lowered himself to the ground, his movements fluid and precise. For the first time in decades, he was no longer adrift in the void. And as he joined the team, a sense of purpose returned to his glowing eyes. The journey back to Earth would be perilous, but for the first time in years, humanity had a fighting chance. Part 3. The desolate landscape around them felt like another world entirely. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, broken only by the faint hum of energy radiating from Ethan Drake's crystalline armor. His towering figure cast long shadows across the ruins, making him seem even more imposing than he already was. Despite his cold demeanor, there was something almost hypnotic about him, a presence that demanded respect and caution in equal measure. Daniel, Laura, and Jack exchanged uneasy glances as they stood before him. None of them knew what to expect. Next, they had found Ethan Drake, but now they had to convince him to help them, and, more importantly, they had to get him back to Earth. "We need to leave," Daniel said finally, breaking the silence. "The Veil isn't going to wait for us." Ethan tilted his head slightly, studying Daniel with those glowing eyes. "You expect me to trust you after decades of being abandoned here?" Laura stepped forward, her voice steady despite the unease she felt. "We didn't abandon you. No one even knew where you were until now. But we're here because we believe you can help us. If the Veil wins, humanity is finished. That includes you, Toof. We fail, you'll be stuck here forever." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He turned his gaze toward the horizon, where strange symbols carved into the ruins pulsed faintly with light. For a moment, it seemed like he was lost in thought, or perhaps communicating silently with the AI core embedded in his mind. Then, without warning, he spoke. "Very well," he said calmly. But I will not act blindly. Tell me everything you know about this veil. Over the next several hours, the team explained everything they could. They told Ethan about the sudden appearance of the veil, how it blocked all communication and exploration beyond Earth's atmosphere. They described the failed attempts to breach it, the countless probes that vanished without a trace, and the growing fear among humanity that Earth might never see the stars again. As they spoke, Ethan listened intently, his expression unreadable. Occasionally, he would ask questions, sharp, direct inquiries that revealed just how advanced his intellect had become since merging with the AI. By the time they finished, the sun, or whatever passed for a sun in this strange dimension, had begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruins. This veil? Ethan said slowly, his tone thoughtful. It is unlike anything I have encountered. Its design suggests intelligence, possibly artificial. You are certain it is not of human origin? Absolutely, Laura replied. Nothing on Earth has the technology to create something like that. Whoever or whatever built it is far ahead of us. Ethan nodded, his glowing eyes narrowing slightly. Then it is likely a weapon, a containment field designed to isolate your planet. Jack frowned. Containment? Why would anyone want to trap us here? To prevent you from advancing, Ethan answered simply. Or to prepare you for destruction. Both are common strategies among advanced civilizations when dealing with lesser species. The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. None of them wanted to believe that Earth was being targeted for annihilation, but the possibility couldn't be ignored. If Ethan was right, then every second they wasted meant less time to prepare for whatever came next. We need to get back, Daniel said urgently. If the veil is a weapon, we need to figure out how to fight it fast. Ethan regarded him coolly. You speak as though returning to your world is simple. It is not. Crossing dimensional barriers requires precision and power. Power I currently lack. Laura frowned. What do you mean, power? Aren't you, well, supercharged or something? Ethan shook his head. My abilities are limited without external resources. This place drains energy over time, which is why I have remained dormant for so long. To return to your dimension, I will need a source of sustenance, a way to recharge. Jack scratched his head. So, what? We just find some alien battery lying around here? Not exactly, Ethan replied. But there may be remnants of ancient technologies scattered throughout these ruins. If we locate enough functional components, I can use them to restore my strength. Without waiting for further discussion, Ethan began moving through the ruins, his armored form gliding effortlessly over the uneven terrain. The others followed closely behind, their footsteps crunching softly against the cracked stone. As they walked, Daniel couldn't help but marvel at Ethan's presence. There was something almost mechanical about the way he moved, yet also deeply human. It was a strange contradiction, one that made him both fascinating and unsettling. After nearly an hour of searching, they stumbled upon their first discovery, a large obelisk covered in intricate carvings. Unlike the other structures, this one emitted a faint, pulsating glow. When Ethan approached it, the light grew brighter, responding to his presence. This will suffice, he said, placing one hand against the surface of the obelisk. Instantly, streams of energy began flowing from the structure into his body. The blue glow surrounding him intensified, and for the first time, the team noticed subtle changes in his posture. He seemed stronger, more alert. How much more do you need? Laura asked, watching the process with a mix of awe and concern. Enough to sustain me during our journey, Ethan replied, and enough to ensure I can confront whatever awaits us on the other side. They continued exploring the ruins, collecting energy from similar structures whenever they found them. Each time, Ethan grew visibly stronger, his movements becoming more fluid and confident. By the time they reached the edge of the dimensional rift again, he appeared fully restored, or at least as close to it as they could hope for. Standing before the swirling vortex, Ethan turned to face the group. Are you prepared? Once we cross, there is no turning back. Daniel nodded firmly. We're ready. Laura adjusted the straps on her backpack, ensuring her equipment was secure. Let's do this. Jack gave a nervous grin. Here's hoping we don't end up as space dust. With that, Ethan led the way into the rift. The transition was jarring, just as it had been before. Colors blurred together, sounds echoed chaotically, and time itself seemed to warp unpredictably. But this time, Ethan acted as a stabilizing force, guiding the group through the chaos with surprising ease. His presence provided a sense of direction, anchoring them amidst the disorienting swirl of energy. When they emerged on the other side, they found themselves back in the Arctic wilderness. The cold hit them like a wall, sharp and biting, but none of them cared. They had done it. They had brought Ethan Drake back to Earth. Returning to civilization proved challenging. The team knew they couldn't simply announce Ethan's existence to the world. Doing so would cause panic and potentially attract unwanted attention. Instead, they decided to keep his presence a secret, for now. Using Jack's connections, they arranged for a private aircraft to transport them to a secure facility hidden deep in the mountains. The facility belonged to General Patricia Hargrove, a stern but pragmatic leader who oversaw U.S. Strategic Command. She had been briefed on the mission beforehand and agreed to provide support under strict confidentiality. When the team arrived, she greeted them personally, her sharp eyes immediately locking onto Ethan. So this is him, she said, her tone measured but curious. Subject Alpha. Ethan met her gaze evenly. I am more than a subject. I am a solution. Hargrove raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. Turning to Daniel and Laura, she asked, do you believe he can help us? Yes, Daniel replied, confidently. He's our best chance at understanding and defeating the Veil. Hargrove nodded. Then we'll give him every resource he needs. But time is critical. Reports indicate increased activity near the Veil. Whatever it is, it's getting closer. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. Tell me what you know. Every detail matters. For the next several days, the team worked tirelessly to share everything they had learned about the Veil. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel gathered in the facility's main conference room, presenting data, theories, and simulations. Ethan absorbed it all with remarkable speed, asking questions that often left even the experts stumped. As the discussions progressed, a plan began to take shape. It was risky and untested, but it offered a glimmer of hope. Using Ethan's enhanced abilities, combined with cutting-edge technology developed specifically for this mission, they would attempt to breach the Veil directly. If successful, they might finally uncover its secret sand, put an end to humanity's imprisonment. But, as preparations moved forward, tensions began to rise. Some members of the team questioned whether unleashing Ethan Drake was truly wise. Others worried about the potential consequences of confronting whoever or whatever controlled the Veil. Despite their fears, however, one thing remained clear. They had no other choice. Humanity's survival depended on taking action, and with Ethan Drake by their side, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead even if it meant risking everything. Part 4. The secure mountain facility buzzed with activity as teams of scientists, engineers, and military personnel worked around the clock to prepare for humanity's most daring mission yet. Ethan Drake stood at the center of it all, his glowing form a constant reminder of both hope and uncertainty. Despite his calm demeanor, there was an undeniable tension in the air. Everyone knew the stakes were unimaginably high. General Patricia Hargrove oversaw the operation, her sharp eyes scanning every detail. She had spent years leading strategic missions, but nothing compared to this. The Veil wasn't just another enemy. It was an unknown force capable of wiping out Earth's future with a single stroke. And now, they were gambling everything on a being who was part man, part machine, and entirely unpredictable. Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett worked closely with Ethan, trying to bridge the gap between human ingenuity and his advanced intellect. Their task was twofold. First, to understand how Ethan could interact with the Veil without causing catastrophic damage, and second, to design equipment that could amplify his abilities during the confrontation. It was a delicate balance, one that required precision and trust to things, in short, supply given the circumstances. Jack Monroe stayed on the sidelines for the most part, but he wasn't idle. Using his skills as an investigator, he dug deeper into classified files, searching for any overlooked clues about the Veil or its creators. He also acted as a liaison between the team and General Hargrove, ensuring everyone remained focused on the bigger picture. Though he lacked scientific expertise, his pragmatism often brought clarity to heated debates. One evening, after hours of intense discussion, the group gathered in the facility's main lab to review their progress. Screens displayed complex diagrams, energy readings, and simulations of what might happen when Ethan engaged with the Veil. Laura adjusted her glasses, pointing to one particularly troubling graph. "This is the problem," she said, tapping the screen. "If we push too hard against the Veil, we risk destabilizing it. That could lead to, well, no one really knows. But it wouldn't be good." Ethan stepped closer, studying the data silently. His blue glow cast faint shadows across the room as he processed the information. Finally, he spoke. "You fear collateral damage, understandable. However, hesitation will only prolong your suffering. If we act decisively, we may achieve victory or annihilation. Either outcome is preferable to stagnation." Daniel frowned. He's not wrong. Sitting here waiting for something to happen isn't going to save us. We need to take the fight to the Veil. Hargrove crossed her arms, her expression stern. "And if we fail, what happens then?" "We don't have a plan B," Jack admitted bluntly. "If this doesn't work, we're back to square one and probably worse off than before." Laura sighed, rubbing her temples. "There has to be a middle ground. Something that minimizes risk while still giving us a chance." Ethan turned to face her, his glowing eyes piercing yet oddly reassuring. "Risk cannot be eliminated, only managed. I suggest focusing on adaptability rather than prediction. The Veil is intelligent. It will respond to our actions. Our goal should be to stay one step ahead." His words struck a chord. For all their planning and theorizing, they were dealing with an adversary they barely understood. Predicting its behavior was impossible. Adapting quickly, however, might give them the edge they needed. Over the next few days, the team refined their strategy. They decided to construct a specialized vessel called the Aegis, designed to breach the Veil's defenses and carry Ethan directly into the heart of the blockade. The ship would be equipped with cutting-edge technology, including quantum stabilizers to protect against dimensional instability and energy amplifiers to enhance Ethan's powers. Ryan Mitchell, a seasoned astronaut known for his calm under pressure, was chosen to pilot the Aegis. Tall and broad-shouldered, Ryan had a quiet confidence that inspired trust. He had flown countless missions, but none compared to this. When he first met Ethan, he couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and unease. Still, he knew failure wasn't an option, not for himself, and certainly not for humanity. As construction of the Aegis progressed, Captain Samantha Hayes led a small contingent of soldiers tasked with providing backup during the mission. Her team consisted of skilled operatives handpicked for their resourcefulness and bravery. While they weren't expected to engage directly with the Veil, their presence ensured the crew had protection in case things went sideways. Finally, after weeks of preparation, the day of departure arrived. The Aegis stood ready in the facility's hangar bay, its sleek design gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. Its surface was covered in intricate panels and antennas. each piece meticulously crafted to withstand the stresses of breaching the veil. Inside, rows of monitors displayed real-time data, while control panels hummed softly with power. As the team boarded the ship, emotions ran high. Daniel clasped Laura's shoulder briefly, offering a silent gesture of support. Jack gave Ryan a firm handshake, muttering, "Bring us back in one piece." Yeah. Even General Hargrove allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability, wishing them luck before sealing the hatch behind them. Once inside, Ethan took his place near the center of the cabin. His armor reflected the soft glow of the ship's interior lighting, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. As the engines roared to life, Ryan's voice crackled over the intercom. "All right, everyone buckle up. This is it. Let's make history." The Aegis launched smoothly, ascending through Earth's atmosphere with breathtaking speed. From the cockpit windows, the curve of the planet stretched out below them, fragile blue sphere surrounded by endless blackness. Above them loomed the veil, its dark mass blotting out the stars like a storm cloud. As they approached, the veil reacted violently. Massive tendrils of energy lashed out, attempting to repel the intruder. The ship shuddered under the assault, alarms blaring as systems strained to maintain stability. Ryan gripped the controls tightly, sweat beading on his forehead. "Hold steady," he shouted. "We're almost through." Ethan moved to the front of the cabin, raising one hand toward the veil. A surge of blue energy erupted from his palm, colliding with the tendrils and forcing them aside. The ship rocked violently, but Ethan's intervention cleared a path forward. "Now," Ethan commanded, his voice echoing through the cabin. Ryan pushed the throttle to maximum, and the Aegis surged forward, breaking through the veil's outer layer. For a brief moment, everything went white. The world outside dissolved into pure light, and time itself seemed to freeze. When the light faded, the crew found themselves in uncharted territory. The space beyond the veil was unlike anything they had ever seen. Stars burned brighter here, their colors shifting and pulsating like living flames. Strange shapes drifted in the distance, resembling massive structures, or perhaps ships. It was beautiful and terrifying. "This is it," Laura whispered, staring wide-eyed at the view screens. "We're really here." Ethan lowered his hand, his expression unreadable. "Prepare yourselves. Whatever awaits us, it will not be merciful." The Aegis navigated cautiously through the alien expanse, scanning for signs of the veil's creators. Every sensor reading revealed new mysteries, hinting at technologies far beyond human comprehension. Yet despite the wonder surrounding them, the crew remained focused. They hadn't come this far to marvel at the stars, they had come to fight. As they delved deeper into the unknown, Ethan grew increasingly alert. His AI core processed vast amounts of data, piecing together fragments of information that eluded the others. Eventually, he spoke, his tone urgent. "They are aware of us. We must act quickly." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms blared again. On the view screen, a swarm of objects appeared, dozens of sleek, insectoid vessels closing in rapidly. Their surfaces shimmered with iridescent hues, and their movements were eerily synchronized. "They've found us," Ryan said grimly, gripping the controls tighter. Ethan stepped forward once more, his voice calm but commanding. "Engage. Evasive maneuvers. I will handle them." Without waiting for confirmation, he raised both hands, unleashing a torrent of energy that engulfed the incoming ships. Explosions lit up the void as several vessels disintegrated instantly. The rest scattered, retreating into the darkness. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Then Ryan let out a shaky breath. That was impressive. Ethan lowered his arms, his glow dimming slightly. "Do not celebrate yet. This is only the beginning." Though they had survived the initial encounter, the crew knew they were walking a razor-thin line. Each decision brought them closer to answers, but also closer to danger. With Ethan Drake by their side, They pressed onward, determined to uncover the truth behind the veil and reclaim humanity's place among the stars. What awaited them next, however, would test their courage and their resolve in ways they could never have imagined. Part 5. The crew of the Aegis sat in stunned silence as the remnants of the insectoid ships drifted away into the void. The battle had been brief, but intense, and though Ethan Drake's intervention had saved them, the encounter left everyone on edge. None of them had expected to face opposition so soon or so violently. Ryan Mitchell leaned back in his seat, exhaling slowly. His hands were still gripping the controls, knuckles white from the strain. "That was close," he muttered, glancing at the view screen where streaks of light marked the debris of destroyed vessels. "Too close." Laura Bennett stared at the monitors, her mind racing. She had spent years studying anomalies like the Veil, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The alien ships, sleek, insect-like, and seemingly alive, were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, and now they knew. Whatever controlled the Veil wasn't just watching, it was ready to fight. Daniel Carter stood nearby, his eyes fixed on Ethan. The glowing figure remained motionless, his expression unreadable. Despite his calm exterior, there was an intensity about him, a sense that he was constantly analyzing, calculating, preparing for what came next. "We need to keep moving," Daniel said finally, breaking the silence. "If those ships report back, we might not get another chance." Ethan nodded slightly, his voice calm but firm. "Agreed, but we must proceed cautiously. They will regroup and they will adapt." Samantha Hayes, leading the small team of soldiers aboard the Aegis, stepped forward. Her sharp features were set in a determined scowl. "We can handle ourselves if it comes to a fight. Just tell us what you need us to do." Ethan turned to her, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "Your role is secondary. This conflict requires precision, not brute force. Stay alert, but leave the engagement to me." Samantha opened her mouth to argue, then thought better of it. There was no denying Ethan's capabilities, not after what they'd just witnessed. Still, she didn't like being sidelined. Soldiers were trained to protect, and sitting idle while others took the lead went against every instinct she had. As the Aegis moved deeper into the alien expanse, the environment grew stranger. The stars around them pulsed with unnatural colors, shifting between shades of violet, emerald, and gold. Massive structures floated in the distance, their shapes impossible to describe. Some looked like colossal webs spun from metal, while others resembled jagged mountains carved by unseen hands. Energy fields crackled faintly in the air, creating ripples that distorted vision. Jack Monroe wandered through the cabin, peering out of the windows with wide eyes. He wasn't a scientist or a soldier. He was just a guy who liked solving puzzles. But even he couldn't deny the awe-inspiring strangeness of this place. "It's like someone built heaven and forgot to invite us," he murmured, shaking his head. Laura overheard him and smiled faintly. "Or hell," she added under her breath. Ethan remained focused, his AI core processing data faster than any human could comprehend. Every second brought new information, fragments of communication, energy signatures, patterns of movement. Slowly but surely, he began piecing together a clearer picture of their surroundings. "They are testing us," Ethan announced suddenly, his tone deliberate. "The attack was not meant to destroy. It was reconnaissance, a way to gauge our strength." Ryan frowned. "So what? They're sizing us up before they hit us harder." "Precisely," Ethan replied. "Which means we must act decisively. If we wait too long, they will overwhelm us." Daniel approached Ethan, his expression serious. "Do you think you can track them? Find where they're coming from?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "I can attempt it, but I will require access to your ship's systems." Without hesitation, Laura moved to a nearby console, typing rapidly. "I'll connect you to the mainframe. Just don't fry the circuits, okay?" Ethan extended one hand, placing it gently on the console. A surge of blue energy flowed from his palm, interfacing seamlessly with the ship's technology. Lines of code scrolled across the screens at lightning speed, far beyond what any human programmer could manage. Within moments, Ethan had pinpointed the source of the enemy ships, a massive structure looming in the distance, its surface covered in pulsating lights. "That's their base," Ethan said, withdrawing his hand. "If we strike there, we may disable their ability to coordinate further attacks." General Hargrove's voice crackled over the comms system. She had remained behind at the mountain facility, but was monitoring the mission closely. "Strike now, or retreat?" she asked bluntly. Ethan glanced at the crew. "Retreating would be futile. They already know we are here. Our only advantage lies in surprise." Ryan tightened his grip on the controls. "Then let's hit them hard and fast. No time for second-guessing." The Aegis accelerated toward the alien base, its engines roaring as it pushed through waves of interference. The closer they got, the more hostile the environment became. Strange beams of energy lashed out, forcing Ryan to perform evasive maneuvers that rattled the entire ship. Alarms blared constantly, warning of structural stress and overheating systems. "We're not going to hold together much longer," Jack shouted, clinging to a nearby railing as the ship shuddered violently. "Stay focused," Samantha barked, steadying herself against the wall. Her soldiers exchanged nervous glances, but followed her example. Gripping their weapons tightly, Ethan moved to the front of the cabin, raising both hands toward the view screen. Streams of blue energy erupted from his palms, forming a protective barrier around the Aegis. The alien beams dissipated harmlessly against the shield, allowing Ryan to push forward without fear of destruction. "Hold steady," Ethan commanded, his voice echoing with authority. "We are almost within range." Finally, the alien base loomed directly ahead. It was enormous, easily dwarfing the Aegis and radiating power. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that shifted and changed like living organisms. At its center, a massive sphere pulsed with a deep red glow, apparent source of the Veil's energy. "That's the target," Ethan said, lowering his hands. "Destroy it, and the Veil will collapse." Ryan adjusted the ship's trajectory, aiming straight for the sphere. "Brace yourselves." The final approach was chaos. Dozens of insectoid ships swarmed around them, firing relentlessly. Ethan unleashed another wave of energy, obliterating several attackers, while shielding the Aegis from the rest. Inside the cabin, sparks flew as overloaded systems short-circuited, filling the air with smoke and the acrid smell of burning wires. "Now, or never," Daniel yelled, gripping the edge of a console for support. Ryan didn't hesitate. With a final burst of speed, he guided the Aegis directly into the heart of the alien base. As they collided with the central sphere, Ethan raised both hands, channeling all his remaining energy into a single, devastating blast. For a moment, everything froze. Then, with a deafening roar, the sphere exploded, sending shock waves rippling outward. The alien base collapsed in on itself, consumed by a blinding flash of light. The Aegis was thrown backward, tumbling uncontrollably through space. When the light faded, the crew found themselves adrift in silence. The alien ships were gone, their coordination shattered along with the base. On the view screen, the Veil flickered weakly before vanishing entirely, revealing Earth's starry sky once again. Breathing heavily, Ryan slumped back in his seat, staring at the controls. "Did we win?" Laura checked the monitors, her hands trembling slightly. "The Veil is down. We did it." Ethan lowered his arms, his glow dimmer than before. For the first time since they'd met him, he looked weary-drained. "The blockade has been removed. Your planet is free." A wave of relief washed over the crew, followed quickly by exhaustion. They had done the impossible, risking everything to reclaim Earth's future. But as they celebrated quietly, none of them noticed the faint red spark lingering in the distance, a remnant of the alien base, still pulsing faintly with energy. Unbeknownst to them, the fight was far from over.